Hello, my name is the WW Kid. You may know me from my series where I determine who won every epic rap battle of history, or you may not. Either way, thank you for joining me. I just finished the first season of that series, and I'm on a relaxing vacation. And I find there's nothing that gets me more relaxed than pegging. PEGGLE is a game released in 2007 by PopCap, the studio behind Bejeweled and Plants vs. Zombies. Many of you may remember PEGGLE from the early smartphone gaming days, and maybe even a couple of you played it on PC rather than the touchscreen phones. While many of you, I'm sure, share my nostalgia, some of you out there also probably think I sound like a nutjob. PEGGLE does admittedly sound like a pretty dirty word, and screaming maximum zen achieved on a bus is a great way to be walking home. So before we dive into the ranking, let's clear the air. PEGGLE takes inspiration from pachinko machines, which are gambling machines where a ball falls and bounces through a series of pegs before randomly landing in one of several possible result buckets. The thrill comes from watching the unpredictable bounces, hoping for certain outcomes, and the roller coaster of emotion as the ball suddenly takes good and bad angles all the way down. A simple mode of gambling, but certainly effective, and as with many things that require explanations, big in Japan. PEGGLE runs with that basic idea of pachinko, but injects elements of games such as Breakout, which feature greater levels of player control and a focus on clearing the pegs rather than simply reaching the bucket. This combination resulted in an incredibly fun and mildly addicting game which functionally acts as a fairly casual and easy puzzler with a certain amount of randomness to the level layout and of the ball's trajectory that keeps victory from being a total guarantee. And one of the core means through which PEGGLE empowers the player is through the PEGGLE Masters. Each PEGGLE Master represents a different character you'll play as, with the adventure mode having you run through each character and the challenges allowing you to choose your favorite or who you think will be most useful for the specific challenge. And why would you choose one character over another, I hear you ask? Well, besides aesthetics, which of course can factor a bit, since frankly PEGGLE isn't that hard of a game and any of these characters can generally be used on any level just fine. Each PEGGLE Master does possess what we'll call an X factor in the form of their unique abilities. These powers allow the player to engage with levels in unique ways and produce an extra level of strategizing. Now, full disclosure, initially this was going to be a much longer video. My original idea was to judge all the masters throughout the whole series, but this idea got derailed for a few reasons. First, PEGGLE Blast, the phone game, is so, we'll say, different from the other games that it would be hard to compare, especially as returning characters have differences in their powers that would potentially change their standings. And as for PEGGLE 2, well, I haven't actually played PEGGLE 2 as of this recording, which I will remedy soon, but I can't rank something I haven't played. So then I was just going to focus on the original two games, PEGGLE and PEGGLE Knights. Seeing as they're very similar, I thought it would be easy to combine the two, but as I was writing and playing, even the minor differences between the games really started to crop up, and I realized these would also need to be split. I'll highlight the differences between each game in their own respective videos, but for now, let's head on over to the star of today's show, PEGGLE 1. Now that don't look right. PEGGLE Extreme. Yeah, I don't know where else I'd bring it up, but I want to talk about it because it's a pretty interesting thing to exist. PEGGLE Extreme is technically the first sequel to PEGGLE, releasing shortly after the first. Most people would probably classify it as a free DLC level pack, but it came out during a weird time for gaming when DLC add-ons hadn't quite been normalized and standardized the way they are today, so we ended up with some wacky rollouts, physical media that doesn't feel like it should exist, and odd standalone titles. Extreme features 10 levels, which are remixes of ones from the first game, as well as 5 challenges, and it only allows you to play as Bjorn, the first master you play as in the main game. Now, why the heck would you want to play that, I hear you ask? Well, did I forget to mention, PEGGLE Extreme was made in conjunction with Valve and originally released as part of the Orange Box on PC to help promote the game, and because the Valve employees loved playing PEGGLE so much in the office. Valve, if you somehow don't know, is the company that runs Steam, and at some point in the distant past also made a lot of games that tended to be really good. And if you don't know what the Orange Box is, well, I'm just gonna say I'm sorry that you missed out on a really fun time to be a gamer. I can't explain TF2 to you, you just had to be there. So the upswing is that PEGGLE Extreme is PEGGLE, but with voice clips and visuals from the games in the Orange Box, i.e. Portal, Team Fortress 2, and Half-Life 2, with a short story mode that involves you using the art of PEGGLE to stop the Half-Life zombies and aliens from taking over. It's just so cool, and a wonderful piece of gaming history. And you can go play it for free right now on your PC. Honestly, it's probably better that it was a standalone release instead of DLC, because otherwise Otherwise, I'm sure this wouldn't still be available for licensing reasons alone, but that's a discussion for another time. PEGGLE Extreme won't factor much into the actual ranking other than when it comes to Bjorn, since it's basically 15 extra levels where you can weigh his abilities and character, which I think is fine and even fair since he gets a bit sidelined as the tutorial character in the first game. With all that out of the way, let's explain my ranking system for the Masters. I'll be judging each character by their aesthetics and their abilities. Aesthetics represents how good their visual designs are, how fun I think things like their names and their quotes are, how interesting their character-specific levels are, and how well I feel they fit within PEGGLE itself. This will be a score out of 10. Abilities covers pretty much everything else. How generally useful each character power is, are they more situational versus more universally usable, how effective are they at clearing pegs, how fun are they to use, and how likely are they to get you that extra ball through high scores or other means. You can get extra balls either by making it into the bucket or by hitting totals of 25,000, 75,000, and 125,000 for 1, 2, or 3 extra balls respectively. The ability score will be out of 10 and then doubled, because while aesthetics are important, the actual power itself is frankly twice as important and will be weighted much more heavily. This leaves us with a final score out of 30 to tell us who is the best master in PEGGLE Deluxe. Alright, hopefully that all makes sense. Let's get pegging. What? Don't look at me like that. Number 10, Claude. Stupid ass crustacean with his stupid pinball minigame. And the worst part, he's French. You ever seen Along Came Polly? He's this dude. This dude sucks, and Claude sucks. And I know it's a pun because his name is Claude and he's got claws, but counterpoint, he could have been named Jean-Claude and been a cool kickboxer or something. Instead, we got a crab in swim trunks and the, oh god, the flipper power. I guess stepping back, I do see what they were going for. PEGGLE's already an amalgamation of a bunch of other games, so maybe throwing pinball into the mix could be cool. And in theory, I see how flippers could act as a shot extender, collecting you massive point totals as you basically get to keep using a single ball, clearing pegs forever if you're skilled enough. And don't get me wrong, I like pinball, but Claude's big meaty claws ain't no Guns N' Roses pinball machine. His rinky-dink claw paddles are so small, getting a chance to even use them already requires a bit of luck, and realistically, you can only even reach so much of the level with them before you simply can't hit the ball higher or farther. So even very best case, the whole like top third and bottom middle are pretty much inaccessible with the flippers. And the devs knew his power was a bust, you can't convince me otherwise, because the only level he's even reasonably useful on is the very first adventure mode level he shows up on, and that's basically the level built specifically in a way to maximize the effectiveness of his claws. These pegs are set up to roll the ball right onto them so you can keep on bouncing. And you know what? Claude still sucks on this level anyway, because after the very first shot, these pegs will be cleared and now you just have these dumbass flippers for 4 more turns. That's another reason you know the devs were aware they suck. If they give you more than 2 turns with a power, it means it doesn't do a whole lot to help, and 5 turns? Well, let's just say they were right. The flippers don't do a whole lot. A big issue is you can't really change the power level with the claws, so aiming is clunky at best, and once you've hit all the pegs in range of the trajectory, there's not much more that they can really do. Some sort of shot power meter would have really gone a long way. Sure, you get a little extra bonus if you hit the ball enough times with the flippers, but that brings me to the next issue, and what I hate the most about Claude's power. It's tedious. It's a power that specifically is more useful the longer you sit there bouncing the ball trying to reach every last possible peg, and it's a power that you have to manually activate every single time you want to use it. It literally goes against the entire design philosophy of the rest of the game, where you plan a shot and watch as it unfolds. It's a power that takes away the best, most satisfying part of PEGGLE. Even if Claude was, by some unholy miracle, the absolute best choice for a situation, I still wouldn't want to use him because I wouldn't want to be bothered with this annoying gimmick. And to top it all off, he has one extra hidden flaw. When the flippers are activated, they make any pegs that were in that space vanish. No, they don't clear them, they just vanish, which is a ripoff, especially with how it doesn't directly add an orange peg to the multiplier meter. Now, I will allow Claude one positive. There is a single, minor quirky benefit of the claws. If you hit the last orange peg while the claws are active, which is pretty easy with how many turns you get them, you can still use them during the cleared stage part, which can allow you to hit a few extra blue pegs which are worth more during this time, and also you can basically guarantee you won't get the 1000 point bonus since those 2 buckets are on the sides and thus mostly blocked by the flippers. And I say mostly because, again, these claws are so short that they don't even fully cover those spots all the way, so you still might just get unlucky and hit 1000 in spite of everything. I'm sure the devs were worried if the flippers were longer they'd be too good, but in the process they got nerfed to hell and are just worthless. Claude ends things with a 0 in character and a 1 in power doubled to a 2 for an overall score of 2 out of 30. Again, Claude sucks and all of his levels are just fish themed and disappointing. And while we're at it, this guy sucks too. Number 9. Bjorn. And going from guy I hate to guy who just kinda exists, we have Bjorn the Unicorn, the first master you get to use, the character who introduces you to the concept of Peggle, and the star of the aforementioned Peggle Extreme. If the series has a mascot, it's probably Bjorn. Now, Bjorn seems like a cool guy, no doubt, and canonically he was the one who founded the Peggle Institute, so that's kinda neat. It certainly makes him the most important character in the game, so he gets good marks for that. Which is all that really sneaks him above Claude, because while the flippers were barely situational at best, Super Guide is, well, I guess charitably it's not helpful to have. It gives you a little trajectory line to show you where your ball will bounce after its initial contact, which is only really useful in its intended purpose if you're brand new to the game and frankly brand new to games in general and aren't used to how your shots will bounce yet. Which makes him fine as essentially the tutorial master, but also begs the question, why would you ever actively choose him once you understand the physics engine? Any semi-competent gamer can just use their eyes and accomplish what Super Guide does. Sure, you can make some sort of use case for it. I guess if you're trying to map out the absolute perfect shot location on a map, it would give that little extra bit of pinpoint accuracy, but even then, it's kind of more of a time saver than anything because you could still work that out without Super Guide, it's just going to take you an extra few attempts. It could also maybe help you make some insane, ridiculous trick shot to stunt on your friend in versus mode, but again, this is so niche it may as well not factor. I think an easy fix to make Super Guide a bit more worthwhile would have been to have it show the first 2 bounces your ball would take. I can imagine maybe from a programming standpoint this could have presented some difficulties, but I think having that second bounce knowledge would go a long way towards having the power-up allow you to actually make some crazy shots that would have been difficult, if not impossible, without seeing how it all lined up. As is, it just does too little to say it does, well, anything, really. Also, as I mentioned with Claude, powers can have certain unstated hidden benefits and hidden downsides. Now, obviously, since Super Guide is basically nothing, it has minimal unannounced impact on the game. That is, in all respects, but one small out-of-the-way one. See, there are a few challenges and a versus game mode in which the player can compete against various masters, and the unintended effect of Super Guide is that challenging Bjorn becomes even easier than it should be. Because effectively, the CPU Bjorn doesn't have a power-up. He's already a computer. He already knows what the shot's gonna do. It can't even see technically. So having an extra line to show the bounce isn't gonna do a whole lot. Now, is that a downside or an upside? That depends if you want more challenge or more of an easy time, but either way, it is an unintended consequence. Anyway, Bjorn, love you my guy, but your power-up sucks, sorry. Bjorn ends up with a 7 in character and a heartbreaking 0 in power, giving him a 7 out of 30. Number 8. Cat Tut. First off, terrible name. Second, he's I guess an Egyptian pharaoh cosplaying cat, which sure, cats were worshipped in ancient Egypt, so that's fine, although this dude looks more like Stimpy than ancient Egyptian cat art. He probably should have been a Sphinx cat, but oh well. Half-ass commitment to theming side, I at least do enjoy the idea of Cat Tut, and I like the visual design of his levels. Power-wise, Cat Tut gives you the pyramid power, which adds slope sides to the bucket. As with both of the last powers, even the devs knew it sucked since, again, this is one you get for 5 turns per green peg, which also means that technically to get the full benefit out of your green pegs, you need to hit a green peg on your first shot and then the other green peg within the first 5 after that. Or you would need to plan to get a free ball somewhere along the way since you only get 10 shots to start each level. And realistically, both of these things are very doable and in fact likely to happen, but still it is some whack game design when you think about it. Compared with Super Guide, the pyramid at least does something, but it really is the embodiment of, well, I guess it's better than nothing. And there's a very real argument that Claude's flippers are more useful, which is not a great look. All the pyramid does is transform the bucket at the bottom of the screen into a pyramid with slopes at the sides. While it doesn't have the shot extending potential of the flippers, you can still clear a few more pegs or make some crazy tricky bounce shots using the sides since it's essentially a floor that you can bounce off of. But the main draw of the bucket is making it easier to get free balls, as you receive a free ball if you make it into the bucket and you'll often get a little extra 10k pyramid pickup or eye of the pyramid bonus to go towards your high score along the way. Overall, I like this a bit more than the flippers since it's generally more useful and also because it's a passive ability that I don't have to activate myself. Still, Cat Tut's another master that has me asking, why would you choose this? Because the pyramid doesn't really do a whole lot aside from creating a few extra lucky bounce opportunities. And Cat Tut isn't even a cute enough cat to justify choosing him on his looks alone. He's pretty lackluster, and he'll end up with a 4 in character and a 2 in power doubled to a 4 for a total of 8 out of 30. Number 7. Jimmy Lightning. I don't know about this guy. He's giving knockoff Ricky Bobby and definitely makes his money by dealing to high schoolers. No way he's holding down a full-time job, and I feel like he gets a bit high in his own supply from time to time. Weird energy, and I'm not sure what a gopher has to do with extreme sports, and I'm not even sure what extreme sports have to do with multi-ball, aside from the fact that they can all be labeled as tubular, apparently. Multi-ball is a power-up that seems like it should be a lot better than it is. I mean, it's a whole second ball added to the middle of your shot. Should be double the success, right? Problem, the way the mechanic works makes multi-ball a more situational power than it should be. Sure, if the stars align and the green pegs are in exactly the right spots on the perfect map, and things bounce just so, you can rack up a hefty score from the multi-ball shot. Not to mention, the extra ball makes it a tad more likely at least one of them will hit the bucket, and if you're really lucky, you can get both in for 2 free balls and the bucket frenzy bonus. But green peg placed too low? Sorry, second ball won't add much because it activates from that point and will likely just drop into the void immediately. Map has pegs that are spaced too far apart, decent chance the second ball just pops in the air, bounces off one other peg, and again, drops into the void. Bad bounce? Well, it probably will be, because the multi-ball has a weird effect on the trajectory of your shot. Your initial ball seems to get a little momentum burst, I think, and then the added ball kind of gets slowly lobbed up into the air the opposite direction from the first ball's bounce. I'm pretty sure they did this so that the balls won't immediately collide and kill the momentum and then land in the same spot, but they still often do anyway, and the upswing is you basically just have to pray the balls do something useful after hitting the green pegs because your initial shot plans are out the door. Also, another weird little side effect of the multi-ball is the green peg you hit despawns when activated, which can sometimes be beneficial, but from my experience can also change the peg setup in an unfavorable way. Again, really situational. And again, I suspect probably done to prevent the balls glitching on spawn or hitting that green peg immediately. And a last thing, back to the aesthetics. Visually, multi-ball disappoints me. Sure, we get the little guitar sound, which is cool, but I don't get why there isn't some sort of explosion or, you know, a lightning crack. Instead, it activates like a wet fart, and the second ball doesn't even have a visual indicator or anything to tell you which is which. Would be cool to easily know for sure what this multi-ball investment is doing for me. Jimmy's fine, I guess. I mean, not really. I don't like the guy, and he looks like he at least has 1 restraining order filed against him, but I guess he isn't Claude, so he gets a 3 in character. Multi-ball is a mixed bag as a power. It can be great sometimes, but often it can be basically worthless. I'll give it a 4, doubled to an 8, giving Jimmy a total of 11 out of 30. Number 6. Tula. Tula is a sunflower and not a tulip, and I can't fathom why that is. Maybe a sunflower was just easier to draw. It bothers me. She's also a hippie, which also bothers me, but not quite as much. And her levels include a Volkswagen Bug and some windmills, which actually I find incredibly charming. And on brand, her ability is called Flower Power, which is an ability I've found to always be kind of useful, but never figured out how to really take advantage of. It's possibly the simplest power in the game. You hit a green peg and a certain amount of semi-random orange pegs in the stage will be cleared with a little flower effect. I'm not sure exactly how the amount of cleared pegs is determined, but from my experience, it usually clears around a fifth of the oranges, so a pretty decent amount all considered, and it tends to clear pegs that are closer to the green that you hit. This won't be enough to get you a free ball on its own, but it does set you up for a pretty solid point total as long as your bounce off the green peg is pretty good. The flower power's biggest flaw is how little it affects the game state of the board. Sure, clearing oranges is nice, but since it does nothing to help clear blue pegs or hit the bonus purple peg, it kind of feels a bit worthless. After all, other better powers will help you clear all types of pegs, leading to the powers themselves helping you to get huge point totals. As is, flower power just doesn't do enough, and it's weird how late in the game you play as Tula. The simplicity of her power makes her seem like an early game character, like I would almost think this would be a better tutorial power than Bjorn's super guide. Overall, I'd call Tula below average. Not outright bad, but for sure lacking and occupying a niche better filled by other masters. She gets a character score of 4 and a power score also of 4, doubling to an 8 for a total of 12 out of 30. Number 5. Splork. In many ways, Splork is pretty comparable to Tula, with a lot of what puts him a spot higher being that I just like playing as an alien in space theme levels more than as a flower in yuppie themed levels. His Space Blast power, like Flower Power, is another one that I can generally make some use out of, but I rarely find it the best option for any given situation. It sends out a peg clearing blast from the green peg you hit with a decent radius, so it doesn't require a super dense collection of pegs to give you some decent points, although this would be its ideal circumstance. So more than any other power in the game, Splork is dependent on a good green peg placement for his ability to be effective and to get the best score possible, which means that reloading a level until you get the ideal spot is pretty much what you have to do, which I'd call a failure of game design. Truly, Space Blast can sometimes be less useful than Flower Power, especially if the green pegs are in awkward places where you have to clear a lot of the surrounding pegs before hitting them, but I'd still rate it a little higher since it has greater point potential, is more generally useful, and can have much more impact on the game's state of the stage by clearing a potentially pretty large swath of pegs. Also, I like that it's more fully controllable by the player, and I think it's just overall more fun and satisfying to use. That explosion effect is great. Overall, Splork's the first character on this list I think you wouldn't be totally crazy for choosing in a versus match, and I could understand him being even higher if someone really loved his sci-fi theming. For me, I think he's solid and that's it, kind of the baseline for what a PEGGLE master needs to do. He gets a 5 for character and also a 5 for power, double to a 10, giving Splork a 15 out of 30. Number 4, Lord Cinderbottom. Dude's a dragon. Baller. Unfortunately, he's portrayed as an out-of-touch aristocrat and definitely sounds like a British banking gentleman when honestly, I really want him to be working class and Welsh. Also, his character sprite is messed up since they only gave him one eye. And I know he has 2 eyes, you can see it in other art, so they just goofed up here and it's always kind of freaked me out. Anyway, Lord Cinderbottom is a pretty fun character for sure. I mean, he's a fire-breathing dragon who launches fireballs in his castle-themed levels, and Fireball is the first power on here that I could really see a case for being the best choice in a situation. The fireball blasts through anything, clearing through pegs without bouncing off them, only having collision with the walls, the bucket, and a handful of stage hazards. And kindly, the devs thought to add a cover to the bucket for the first bounce off to give the fireball a little extra mileage. But sadly, while I love the concept, I do think the fireball has a critical flaw. The lack of peg collision means the only real viable shots for making good use of the ability is to bounce it off a wall and then off the bucket, or off the bucket to the wall, and then from there hopefully into the now uncovered bucket for a free ball. And while I respect a power having a high skill floor, you don't usually get enough benefit. Sure, I've made a few huge point shots with Cinderbottom, and the fireball is especially useful in levels with large amounts of bricks instead of pegs, but generally I end up with overall middle of the road shots with it. The main reason for that is the aforementioned bouncing off the bucket mechanic. You get so little upward momentum that you pretty much have to focus your shots on the bottom half of the stage, which isn't fun and really limits Cinderbottom's impact. An easy fix would have been to add some sort of extra bounce when hitting the canvas, like it's springing like a trampoline to give the ball extra propulsion so it could actually reach the higher parts of the level, which I think would have gone a long way towards fixing a lot of what sucks about the fireball. As it stands, Lord Cinderbottom is the character who I think has the most missed potential out of the roster, and I wish he was better in both his design and ability because I want to love the fire-breathing dragon, but instead I only kinda like him. He's receiving a 7 in character and a 6 in power, doubled to 12, resulting in a 19 out of 30. Number 3, Warren. Oh, Warren. How you frustrate me. I don't have any takes on Warren that are hot or new, it's all been said before, so I'll just say it once more with a feeling. Why can you get super guide on this wheel? Oh my god, this frickin' Wheel of Fate gamble that happens when you hit a green peg. First off, it takes for what feels like forever to do the animation. Second, it could be a good idea, but the execution sucks, and that makes it more painful than if it was just a bad idea. And in a game where the whole concept is pachinko but with more player control, why add a mechanic that rips control away this severely? To break it down, when the lucky spin, as it's called, is activated, chance time occurs, and you can hit one of the 4 quadrants on the wheel. Warren's principal power you could receive from the spin is the Magic Hat, which can either show up in just the left quadrant or on the left and right. I don't know if this is randomly determined or not, but Magic Hat, it's pretty good. It basically adds this PNG of a hat above the ball that has no collision, but which will clear any pegs it passes over. It essentially greatly increases your shot's hitbox, and you get it for both the activation turn and the turn after. Frankly, if this was Warren's only power and we didn't have to spin the wheel for it, he'd probably be better off. As it stands, you get either a 1 in 4 or a 50-50 chance to get the hat on any given spin. Now, in the top, or sometimes bottom, I guess, you'll also see Warren's premier, most coveted ability, the Triple Score. Triple Score does exactly what it says on the package. Whatever score you end with on a shot, you get triple. So basically, anything over about 8,200 points is an automatic free ball. Easy. Anything over 25,000 will be an automatic 2 free balls. Not too hard. And anything over about 42,000 is 3 free balls. A bit hard, but if you happen to have the Magic Hat stacked on top of the triple, which is the ultimate goal when playing as Warren, this is pretty doable with a great shot. Not to mention you can still make the bucket for yet a 4th free ball. So the ceiling is through the roof, while still requiring an appropriate amount of player skill to obtain. So what's the flaw with all this? So far, it all sounds pretty great. You spin a wheel, get some cards carnival music and have a fun time. And Warren's a rabbit in a hat named after a rabbit's home, and all the levels are themed perfectly for the occasion. Yep. Everything's perfect as long as all the stars align and the Peggle gods bless you. But because the result of the lucky spin is totally out of your hands, pure RNG becomes a factor, and you better start praying to RNGesus. Sure, you can get a magic hat or a triple score, but if the right quadrant of the wheel isn't magic hat, it will instead be extra ball, which on its face sounds great, but I've just laid out for you how triple score can put you in a position to gain 4 extra balls in a shot. By comparison, 1 extra ball that doesn't give you any additional points, doesn't hit any pegs, and doesn't do anything in the moment to impact your current shot is pretty much garbage, and like Claude's flippers, goes completely against the core design philosophy of the game. Since other power-ups will actually actively help you advance the game state and, do something, while at least putting you in positions to get at least 1 free ball, you have to ask, why is this even in the game? It's basically a non-power that you have to pause the game and watch a wheel for. But the extra ball isn't even the worst option. In the bottom quadrant, you'll find the true epitome of random chance, and the real problem with Warren as a character. You'll find the ability of another random Peggle Master. Yes, it could be anything, and sure, potentially this can result in some really fun experimentation, since it's possible for Warren to get literally any combination of 2 abilities in the game by hitting both green pegs in the same turn. Wacky and wild combinations like a multi-ball with Magic Hat, or Zen Shot and triple points, or Super Guide and flippers, or Super Guide and more Super Guide. Yay, Space Blast when you weren't expecting it and there was 1 peg by the green and then you get an extra ball. See, the big issue with Lucky Spin isn't even that you can get some less than ideal power-ups, it's that when what you'll receive is random, it becomes impossible to plan. You can't count on the green peg when you're playing as Warren because you have no clue what it'll do. And some might argue that's the fun, and I would agree to an extent. The randomness adds a layer of excitement to playing with Warren that you don't get from other characters. But I think some simple design changes of removing the extra ball option and at least letting you know ahead of time which character's power is on the wheel would fix pretty much all the core design issues Warren has. Overall, I do really like Warren, I just think his power is flawed in an unfortunate way. Still going to be a 9 for his character for me, and then a 7 for the power, doubled to 14, resulting in a score of 23 out of 30, which is a pretty respectable 3rd place finish. Abracadabra. Number 2, Renfield. Renfield's my boy. I love this spooky pumpkin who's named after a Dracula character, has Haunted Mansion theme levels, and who plays some Bach when you activate his power. The vibes are immaculate, and full disclosure, Renfield is my Peggle main, so there's some bias for sure. He is my subjective favorite in the game. I just love everything going on with this guy, and I also like his spooky ball ability quite a lot. It's basically just the multi-ball power, but way better in every way, and the best way to describe it is as the ultimate shot extender. You activate spooky ball, the ball becomes green and glowing, and I think slightly increases its size, and when it hits the bottom of the screen, it drops down again for a second shot. The devs also help you out here because the second shot tends to spit out in a favorable location with a favorable angle, not directly correlating with where it exited and making the power much more effective. The ball also retains its momentum from the fall, which can result in some absolutely insane bounce potential and is really satisfying to watch. Basically, Spooky Ball fixes 2 of the biggest issues I had with multi-ball, 3 if you count the lack of fanfare and visual flair. Now, some obvious caveats for Spooky Ball: it needs to be used first or second turn for the maximum effectiveness, so unfavorable green peg placement can weaken its potential. And although the devs programmed the second shot to be favorable, it doesn't work miracles, so if your initial drop is in a particularly bad spot, you can still end up hitting nothing on the follow through. Still, I really enjoy Spooky Ball, and I tend to consistently rack up high point shots when using it. It's satisfying to use, fun to look at, and has to me a perfect skill to value ratio for a power up in this game. Like I said, Renfield's my favorite. I think his design is wonderful, and he gets a perfect 10 in character. And while I'd love to do the same in power, Spooky Ball is properly balanced with enough drawbacks to make it not overpowered, so it'll get an 8, doubled to 16, giving us a total of 26 out of 30 for our 2nd place master. But you'll always be number 1 in my heart, buddy. Number 1, Master Who. I'm sure this shocked exactly none of you who actually played Peggle. Master Who's power is simply objectively probably the best in the game, and his character, though not my favorite, is still really solid. He's exactly the personality you'd expect and want in Peggle, a wise owl with a name that's a bad pun who has achieved spiritual enlightenment through both some sort of mysticism and his dedication to Peggle, which may as well be its own religion in the context of the game. He also has some really cool levels to run through, with the yin-yang symbol being a personal highlight for me. But let's just get to it. Whose Zen Shot is literally just a name bot. It takes whatever shot you make and alters it to create the best possible shot from that general starting point, resulting in some bounces and luck that would be otherwise basically impossible. Now, I do have one huge gripe in that I personally feel Zen Shot strips a little too much control from the player, and the skill floor is literally rock bottom. It becomes less playing Peggle and more watching Peggle, which admittedly can still be really cool when you see some of the insane shit Zen Shot can do, but I still wish it was maybe a little more strict with how good your initial shot had to be to result in big totals, or something else that required just a bit more player input. End of the day, I'm basically complaining because the power is too good, and Zen Shot really is essentially so overtuned and unbalanced that there's no reason to choose another character. Unless you're wanting more of a challenge, specifically choosing for aesthetics, or just feeling really lucky with Warren. Master Hu simply is the best character in the game. It makes sense, he's the last one you unlock, and he'll be getting an 8 for character score from me, and because I'm petty, a 9.5 in power, doubled to 19, resulting in a 27 out of 30 for our #1 Peggle Master. And that's it. And if you made it this far, thank you for sticking around, and I hope you check out some of my other non-Peggle videos. I know this isn't my usual content, and we'll be getting back to Season 2 of Epic Rap Battles in the next one, but I just wanted to take a little side trip into one of my favorite casual games of all time, and I can't wait to dig into Peggle Nights when I'm on my next vacation. Like, subscribe, let me know in the comments if there's any part of the ranking you'd change, and I'll catch you next time.